Hello YouTube, James McLean here with another video about computer programming and my particular computer programming project, Family Game Nights Forever. Although we're going to kind of sidestep from that for a little video here. Um, we're going to talk about just troubleshooting of computer programs in general. So you're writing a computer program. What could go wrong? Well, here's three major categories of coding bugs that I'd like to talk about today. My line of code does nothing. Very common problem. My line of code or my layout does something weird, like it doesn't look like I want it to look like, or it goes to the left instead of going to the right, or it doesn't detect a touch, or it doesn't blow up like it's supposed to in a game. Things of that nature. Third topic, it was working yesterday, it's broken today. What could go wrong? So let's talk about first things first. My line of code does nothing. Most common problem in that situation is something is misspelled. Computer programmers and coders spell weird. The variable names that we give to things and objects are not allowed to have spaces, but they're often very complex concepts. So we use multiple words, but we don't have spaces in between the words. So oftentimes we use capital letters to try to designate between, like, where one word stops and another word ends, like this. But a lot of times they're not consistent. Like here, instead of capitalizing the S like I capitalized the W, I have a dash here. That's not consistent. That's not really good. And there's also something called camel case, where the first letter is not capitalized even though all the other words in that thing are capitalized. And another problem that you run into is you often have acronyms as part of the uh, variable name, like HTML, and that you'll usually find as all capital letters. The H is capitalized, T is capitalized, M is capitalized, L is capitalized because it's an acronym. So what do you do in that case? Just try to be consistent within your own code and don't expect others to be consistent for you. Check it, check it, check it. Most common problem, things are not spelled correctly. I recommend always uh, doing copy and paste for your variable names and object names, because the clipboard is going to spell it correctly for you, whereas you will oftentimes not spell it correctly when you retype it in another part of your code. Okay, moving on. You're not loading the file that you think you're loading. I've run into this bug many times. You may have saved a copy, or you may be coming back to your project the next day, and you accidentally loaded a file into your development environment, but when you run the program, you're actually running a different file. And because you're running an old file and you're not actually changing that old file, none of the changes you're making to your code are having any effect when you look at them. So that's the problem. Simple thing to fix, just make sure that you are looking at the code and the files that you are actually making changes to. Okay? Sometimes your link or the code doesn't have access to what it needs, like it's missing a graphic file or it's missing a library. These ones will usually come with an error message, like null pointer or reference not found, things of that nature. So once you find that resource and give it to your line of code should start working and doing something. This is one of the easier ones to fix. This one can be rough. I have spent 4 days pulling my hair out looking for a problem. After 4 days, it turned out that SRC should be spelled SCR. Something like that. Okay. Line of code is doing something weird. In these cases, hit the books. You're probably just not yet really up to speed on how this thing should work. No shame. I'm still at that same place myself. So educate yourself, use reference material, check the counts and the branching logic of your program. Are you getting to the place where you think you're getting to in your code? Is your loop variable counting up to the right number to get going? Get help from experts. There are 4 levels of knowledge. Firstly, you don't even know what you don't know, so talk to somebody who does know. Finally, you learn what you don't know, so now you can educate yourself about what you don't know. 3rd level, you know it. 4th level, you are a master of that skill. Hope you guys all get to the master level at many things in your life. 3rd thing we're going to look at today, it was working yesterday, but it's broken today. What happened? Who stole my cookie? In these cases, it's not your code usually that's the problem. It's something in the environment around your code that's the problem. Like you may have imported a library, but that library has changed. Or did the file that you're referencing move to another place? Make sure you know how to path out for the operating system that you're on. Relating to that, know that on Windows, file directories are designated by a slash in this way, from the upper left to the lower right. Try to imagine you have a sword in your hand, and if you slash with your right hand, most people are right-handed, you will slash the Linux way and the Macintosh way, from the upper right to the lower left. So that's called a slash, and this one is generally referred to as a backslash. But just know, this is Windows, this is Linux, and be consistent or be on what you're on so that your stuff works. Okay. Other things that could be going on here if your program worked yesterday but it doesn't work today. Is your communication channel still good? Do you still have a good connection to the server that you need to give you what your program needs to run? Another problem is you might be being overwhelmed. If you had 20 users on your website yesterday and things are going fine, well, that's fine. But today, if you have 20,000 users on your website, that might be your problem. It's not your code, it's the environment that your code is running in. You may need to add more servers to help out with the load. Bye-bye. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Leave your links and subscriptions. Ask your questions. What is your favorite bug? And you can tell me about your horror stories of when you spent 3 days and couldn't find the bug. Bye-bye.